Hello again, everyone. Two friends occasionally not disagreeing. This is Cody. We got a full house here tonight. Justin, Joe, Brett, and also Dave is with us tonight. So we're going to talk about Agatha All Along. We won't be doing a review of the TV show. Instead, we're going to be doing a little fan fiction that I've been writing where I've cast each of our hosts as a character from the show. So they'll be reading that character as we go into this tonight. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be really fun. We have Dave playing Agatha Harkness tonight. Who's the mastermind behind the game. We'll all be playing soon, I'm sure. And we have Blue as Joe Locke. This is Billy Maximoff because he's so dreamy, and that's why we picked him for that role. We have Hudson playing Mrs. Hart slash Sharon Davis tonight because he'd be most likely to be like, "What are we doing here again?" Plus, he's old as shit. So that's him.
I don't think you even
Brett.
had to explain that casting. It just makes
Yeah,
sense.
it does, doesn't it? Yeah, it does.
Yeah, for
Brett's
sure.
going to be
It just
playing
feels
Aubrey
right.
Plaza's character here. Brett will be
Ooh.
Death slash Rio Vidal because he's the one who can care about people but also turn deadly on the drop of a hat
Spoilers right at the
Wow.
top.
if he
Okay.
needs to.
Right, the money on this.
I know, right? Justin's going to be playing Jen Kale, the potions queen, because he's the one who mixes all his alcohol together into some concoction no one's heard of before. I'll be playing Patty Lapone. This is Lilia Calderu, the character, because I talk to myself very frequently during the day, so that's going to be my character here tonight. And Joe will be playing Alice Wu Gulliver, Elian's character, because he has been going to the gym and hitting it, and he's a good fighter at this point. So this is going to be his role in the show as we go through. Plus, he hasn't seen his mom since she was on that tour back in the 70s, so there's that as well. Somewhere Willie Nelson has that lady still stuck in a closet somewhere, but we're okay with that. So
I've seen your mom, and
anyway,
that's the important part. Wink.
anyway, all right. Well, let's do a brief introduction here to everybody. What has you all been up to? I'll just go on my screen order here. So, Joe, what you been up to the last week or two?
Well, besides drinking a lot, especially the past week,
Nothing important's happened since we've recorded last.
nothing crazy. Alexis and I actually just got done watching the first season of a series, which is about immortal supernatural beings. At the center of the show is a queer love story about two characters who have an undeniable attraction and just cannot separate themselves from each other,
Man,
but they're ultimately torn apart because of a child.
Matlock.
That's right. I am talking about the first season of AMC's Interview with the Vampire, which is now on Netflix.
Didn't know that was a thing.
It
no?
is. Yeah, so AMC, I think there's two seasons now, but the first season is on Netflix. They made a series based on the Anne Rice Interview with the Vampire and subsequent novels, and it's really good. Like, it is fantastic. It's probably one of the best shows I've seen in several years. Uh, Unlike the Tom Cruise Brad Pitt movie, it very much leans into the gay romance between Lestat and Louis, the two main vampires. But it's just like super well written and acted, and like Lestat in the show is just like a dramatic bitch, and it's hilarious and terrifying and amazing. And I feel like everybody has Netflix, so everyone should check it out because it's a lot of fun.
Hmm. Interesting. Brett, what have you been up to?
Well, this weekend was actually fairly therapeutic. We just sat around a lot and played video games with like the whole family together. I splurged and bought the recently released Mario Party Jamboree,
Oh,
which has been a lot of fun. We even like my wife like right away was like, I hate Mario Party. I'm not playing this. We convinced her because painful memories from the past.
PTSD.
And
Yeah.
so we convinced her to play, and now we're all like really enjoying it. We're having a lot of fun. So it was really fun. We're just a lot of laughs and just having fun this weekend. And we did also we managed to over the last 2 days watch all three of the Hobbit movies.
My
Which
sympathies.
Yeah,
Regular
that's
or
quite an
extended?
undertaking.
extended on the Battle of the Five Armies.
Oh, okay.
The other two
oh,
were, I think, were the original cut.
okay.
Because that's the one I had on DVD. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. Obviously, the kids didn't like weren't glued to it the whole time. They were like, it was hard to keep them kind of focused on it, but they saw the important bits. And like but kind of like the main thing that made kind of stood out to us as we was watching it this time through was like how many things happen in this series of movies that are just like completely impossible. Like the percentage of that like happening is so impossibly small. Just like crazy things happening, like where they're like, for example, the barrel and the barrel's riding down the river, and like the bomber like comes out on the ground and like is rolling around the ground, smashing all the orcs, and then pops back into the river. But it's like there's so many things that are just impossible, but it just makes it that much more fun at the same time. So, anyways, it was enjoyable.
That's what happens when you take a short book and turn it into 3 movies.
Yeah. You get 30 minutes of singing in the first movie.
I mean, that at least felt like Tolkien.
Yeah, there is a lot of singing in Tolkien.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we don't need to see a lot of singing in the movie for a half hour, I'll tell you that much.
But what about a lot of singing in the show we're about to talk about today?
Hey,
No show that's had singing's ever been good. Dave, what have you been up to?
Just the one song over and over again. I been working a lot. I guess the thing that I'll plug that I've been into, and actually my daughter Kate has been into, my 8-year-old, is Marvel's Midnight Suns. This is a game that came out a couple of years ago. And I played it then and enjoyed it, but kind of burned out on it, and then recently picked it up again and have really been digging it. It's basically the combat system is done with like a card, like cards mixed with like XCOM tactical fighting. So that's really fun. I enjoy that aspect of it. And then they kind of paired it with like the other half of the game is almost like high school style relationship building with the other Marvel characters. It's a weird combination, but it works, and both halves of it are pretty fun. The combat more than the other one. But it's pretty good, and I think a lot of people like tried it and then bounced, and it did not do well. Like in terms of financially, it did not do well. So there's not going to be a sequel for it or anything, which is a bummer because I think it's a pretty sweet game. And so if any of that sounded good to you and you haven't tried it, I recommend trying that game out. It's like 85% off on Steam right now, I think, or something like that. I saw Google knows that I like it because I keep looking up stuff for the game, and now they're serving me all these ads about it and how that's how I know it's 85% off somewhere. That's it.
Interesting. And Justin.
All right. Well,
and we're short on time for introductions, so we'll move on from there.
No, I'll keep mine brief.
You're fine.
So I've been watching a show on Peacock called Teacup recently, and saying that sentence out loud makes me realize just how much language has evolved over the years. Because like 50 years ago, that would have been like the ravings of a madman. I've been watching Teacup on Peacock, you know.
I've been watching Peacup on Peacock.
But it's interesting. I'm only, I think, 3 episodes in at this point. But it's sort of a almost Stephen King-esque quarantine story where something happens in the woods, kind of out in the middle of nowhere, where there's just a handful of residences, and a group of people end up getting stuck in this cabin, you know, not all of whom, you know, are really related to each other, not all of whom like each other, but they're being like forcibly quarantined there by men with, you know, guns and gas masks, where they've spray painted this blue line in like a perimeter out into the woods, but all around their property. And if they get too close to the line, they'll get shot. If they cross the line, something even worse happens. I don't exactly know the reasons for the physical changes that happen to them yet, but I'm sure that'll get explained. But yeah, it seems like a show very much built on like the interpersonal relationships these people have or develop, and the tensions that arise with them being stuck with no answers, no communication with the outside world, etc., and so on, while they're trying to figure out how to get out, how to survive, what's going on. So far, so good. It's not wowing me yet, but I'm intrigued enough to see where it goes. Other than that, over the past week, I'm not exactly in the the market for a new graphics card or a CPU or anything. But I've decided to start looking at what's out there before the prices jump 60% in a couple of months due to the absolute nothing that's happened in the country recently. Um, so yeah, that's kind of been it on my end. It's been a week.
Nice. I'll just do a couple of quick ones here. So we have started watching, finally a year too late, but we've started watching The Fall of the House of Usher on Netflix. We're about 4 episodes done, I think, so far, which I'm enjoying that so far. I'm really enjoying, like, as a Poe fan, I'm really enjoying how they're twisting the stories and like using the names and the locations. And now I'm like really, I've been watching like the episode titles very closely. Um, without saying too much more about that, I'm intrigued what happens in the next 2 episodes for reasons, but I won't get into those at the moment here. Big thing for me on my end, though, I guess I would say is this morning I came downstairs at 9 o'clock this morning, and apparently that was 3 hours before I saw another human being in my family. I didn't know that at the time. But I was playing some Fallout, and I finished the game finally after
Nice.
5.5 months. So it was a very anticlimactic ending to the game, I will say. I was like, is that the end? I don't know. They like played like a 1 minute video, and then it put me back in the world again. And I had to look up, like, is this the end of the game? And
That's
by all,
how Bethesda games
by
work.
all accounts, it is the end of the game. So, but it was fun. So I ended up helping the Minutemen win in the end there, and then decided to just go bloodthirsty crazy back to the Brotherhood of Steel and just killed every single member of them for funsies, not because I had to. So that was good. Yeah,
You
that's those are my big things, I guess, here.
you were just trying to find Maximus, weren't you?
I was gonna say you're just taking out your anger at
He's in
Maximus.
one of these suits of armor. I will break them all to find out where they are. Also, I had a random person from California text me this morning, and I pretended to be a Nigerian prince. That was also entertaining for a while today.
Did they also send
So,
did they also send you a PDF that you opened?
no, they sent me a picture of them in a car and a picture of them flicking me off after a while. So that's what I got from
Oh.
them. So good times, though. Good times. Well, anyway, we are here to talk about Agatha All Along on Disney Plus, which
More
finished.
like Billy all along, am I right?
Whoa! Spoilers are going to be in this episode since it's about 10 days later, so everybody should be okay with that. But yeah, so this ran for 9 episodes total on Disney Plus. It's got an 83 on Rotten Tomatoes at the moment, and we reviewed the premiere episode when that came out. But essentially, this is a pretty small cast. It didn't really expand too much from those first couple episodes. There were a few cameos here and there by people just to get them in the story, but it's mostly the coven that she takes down into the Witch's Road.
Down,
And
down, down the
yeah,
road.
sing it. 7 tones though, Dave. We want them all.
Yeah.
Down. But yeah, it's an interesting story. So these witches are traveling basically this thing called the Witch's Road, which was this. I mean, would you describe it as like a other realm, basically, that they're in because they each want
A
something.
road for witches?
Well, yes, a road for witches, but just thinking about how to like even chat about this one because I'm definitely not going to go through and recap episodes, but just I guess I first wanted to just ask how did because I feel like at least I did wrote down a lot of questions after that premiere episode. There was, like what are these, I don't know, 10 or 11 questions I had here, and I kind of made the comparison to Lost a little bit. Dave, I don't think you were on that premiere episode
I
one,
was
but
not.
it did
No.
kind of remind me of like when we first got into that show a little bit. When you're watching that and you just have more questions that keep coming. In those first episodes, I think here was kind of the same thing. Like, who are these people? What's going on with the spell on his mouth? And what's with the
Yeah.
witch's road? And who was the lady talking to? And all of these things, like who's the boy? And we slowly did start to get answers to all of those as the story went on. I think I didn't double check these at the end here, but I think we did presumably get the answer to all of these questions that I had at the beginning. But I just wanted to kind of start off with what did you guys think of the actual journey that they went on the Witch's Road? I mean, what did you expect was going to be on the Witch's Road? Did it end up like meeting your expectations? Were you happy with what they did find while they were down there. We know the twist at the end, of course, we know we'll talk about in a minute here, but just like the time they spent on the road itself, which was 6 episodes or so, I would say. They were on the Witch's Road. So, I mean, did you like what you got from Marvel while they were there in that place?
Glad it wasn't just a palette swap of the Wizard of Oz like I thought it was going to be with how it started out.
Hmm.
Yeah, they actually did do something interesting and different with it, I think, including wrapping in some almost Game of Death elements, which are always up my alley. Hudson probably would like the show too, come to think of it. But it was definitely not what I expected, which is good because I thought it was just going to be kind of a cheap ripoff of something that came before it.
I didn't
I
really.
was surprised. Oh, go ahead.
Nope. I was just gonna say I really just kind of enjoyed the structure of it, where each episode was like a different trial down the road. I felt like it was a good way to kind of keep it like self-contained and like tell its own little story within that episode. And that each of them was fairly different, and so it kind of really made a nice variety of episodes we got.
I like the trial aspect of it as well. I like how they automatically got costume changes at every trial. That was just a fun way to mix things up. I know it's dumb, but um, if I were at the beginning to predict what the road would be like, I would have thought that they would have encountered more people or like beasts to fight, or it was truly just them the whole time. Like Rio came in, midway through, or towards the beginning there. But other than that, it was just them, which in retrospect, knowing what we know at the end, makes sense. Because just like how Wanda, when she created her version of Westview, she didn't. Well, I guess she did make up Vision out of, and the boys purely out of her imagination. So never mind. I was about to say she was only able to use the people who were already there,
Hmm.
to populate the town, but she actually did kind of create three people. So never mind that particular point. I guess it's interesting to me that they chose to make all the trials sort of like an invisible hand, invisible forces at play, testing them and working against them.
Joe, you got anything on that one?
Eh,
Me?
No, I mean, I agree with what Brett said about. I like that the structure did allow each episode to kind of feel like its own thing. I felt like for the most part, each episode was kind of its own like escape room that they're trying to get out of.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
I mean, this is something I'm sure we'll talk about later. The one issue I had is that it felt like each trial was aimed at one of the members of the coven, and I did not necessarily feel like I actually got to know all of the members of the coven enough to really care about them when they're trying to go through their trial. But again, I feel like that's something we can talk about later.
Yeah, I just briefly for myself here, I was very surprised that this essentially was like a series of escape room episodes as well, which I was like, this is awesome. But done in such a way as I think a few people mentioned here, which was just kind of fun with like the conditions they were in, a little bit of risk, a little bit of danger, and then the kind of throwback to WandaVision with the costume changes and like the different periods pieces and almost like they were in like the episodes from that show as well. So yeah, but I would have guessed I forget as one of you said, but I would have guessed there would have been more supernaturally type things down on the road. I guess I didn't really know what to expect, especially early in this show, but I guess I thought there was gonna be like, I don't know, like a boss or whatever you want to say, per se, of like some kind of minions they're fighting, and we really only saw like the Salem, what is it, seven, six, seven, Salem seven?
Yeah, they did have the seven following them, but that turned out to not be too big of a
Yeah,
deal at the
Yeah.
end.
the super memorable Salem 7, who played such a huge
Right?
role in this series, such formidable opponents.
Because we were all like, "There's an animal over here. Which animal is that? Oh my God!" Yeah, that didn't
Yeah, didn't
pan
one
out
of them
so
get like
much.
knocked over with a broom at one point or something? It's
Probably.
like, wow, such nemesis, much threat.
Yeah, you're right. That
Uh,
definitely could be the case. Okay, let's go to. I guess I just want to start with maybe some just general positives, like things that you really enjoyed about the show. We just kind of talked about like what they experienced when they were down on the road itself. But were there any particular like cast members that you thought did a really nice job in the series, or even like a memorable moment that kind of stood out to you as just something from one of the episodes that really was a fun set piece, or just kind of a fun idea that they went into in general?
I was initially really upset when Mrs. Hart ends up getting knocked off, because it's like, oh, it's clear that, oh, she's gone and she's not coming back. She had been my favorite character like heading into this, and for the first couple episodes, it's like, oh, she's going to be like the lighthearted comedy that keeps the show going and whatnot. Then it's like, oh no, never mind. We could only afford her for like 2 or 3 episodes, so so she's gone now. And I was worried the rest of the show was going to kind of like flag after that, because I didn't feel like I had as much of a grasp of the others. But
Yeah.
I was happy to see that we got at least some development for each of them. Maybe not as much as I might have liked, but at least I got a feel for who they were, and I more or less cared when they met their fates. Um, so yeah, I will say the show did a decent job of keeping my interest and getting me attached to the characters that were left as the show progressed.
It turns out Mrs. Hart wasn't
I,
Mephisto at all.
I, I have two words. Patty LuPone
Yeah.
doing her best Desmond Hume impression.
A great
Uh,
comparison.
I mean, honestly, her as the Lilia,
Mhm.
Lilia, that was like the one member of the coven that I felt like the show made me really care about. Like,
Hmm.
I felt like the other trials that were supposed to be focused on like the other members of the coven, I don't feel like they really dove that deep into those characters, but the episode that kind of put her at the center, like really makes you feel for her. And I I got a little emotional during that episode, which is not something that I expected to have happen during this, stupid MCU show. Like I thought I liked the way that episode was structured. I mean, it was reminiscent of the last episode, The Constant, I felt. I thought Patty LuPone was great, and I thought the way that they kind of summarized her life in the span of an episode was pretty effective. So that was, I mean, I know I'm not alone because I know there are all kinds of headlines saying that it was
Yeah.
like the best episode of Marvel television ever. But I think though they were probably right.
Yeah, I
I
saw definitely those headlines, and then also that it was even like a good overall TV episode, compared to
Yeah.
other shows as well. But yeah, really great job for her in that episode. What do you say, Dave?
I agree with the praise of that
Hmm.
actor and her character. And I'll similarly say that I really enjoyed Sashir Zameda's work as Jen. She starts off as a very, you see just like a shallow character. But then she really deepened at the end, and I thought, I've really only ever seen her on SNL. I've never seen her in any role, really comedic or dramatic outside of that show. And I thought that she really did a great job, reacting to Lily's death and um, getting out of her binding at the very end. I thought was like a really powerful moment, and I enjoyed her. So I just wanted to shout out Sashir Zamata.
I'll take what I mean maybe is the easiest one, but I think just the portrayal of Agatha just was done really well. I feel like it was a really good job of like balancing this line of being a character that you simultaneously love and hate, because there's definitely moments where you're like, this character's awesome, I love this person, and then like the next scene they do something just awful, and you're like, oh, come on. Why do you have to be like this, and like I felt like she portrayed it in a way that was like really brought those feelings out. You definitely, she would do just terrible things, and I'd be like, what? Come on, just, you really do like dislike that character in that moment. So
She could do some terrible things to me.
Let's see, is that everybody? Yeah. Justin, you talked? Yeah, you talked. That was everybody. Yeah. There were just some really fun set pieces, I thought. The Lily episode I thought was really fun with the tarot cards and just like the knives and the swords and the ceiling and all that stuff was really cool. I was thinking that maybe when all was said and done, like Agatha wasn't a character. That was one of my favorites here because I do kind of agree with some of the picks you had here. But I think particularly that final episode, this show does something that's really, I thought, kind of unique because when episode 8 ended for all intents and purposes, like they had gotten off the road, Billy was back home, like, and then we get that little jump scare. Well, we don't even see what the jump scare is, I guess, at the end, but he like turns and flinches because somebody's in the room, and I was like, oh my God, like who is this going to be? Because I felt like there, even at that point, could have been like 3, 4 people that it could have been, like somebody from the show or maybe somebody we hadn't seen yet in the show. But the way that episode is like written and plays out, that was probably like the closest I've ever seen a show come to what looked like the last episode, but it wasn't the last episode. And then I was like, what the hell are they going to do with one whole episode after this? Like, he's back home, the quest is over, like, he's discovered some things about, like, his family and all this rest, and then, like, the jump. And I was like, oh, like, they could have left that as, like, the cliffhanger for, like, the season if they wanted to.
I just want to say on that point, I thought that it was because I was watching that episode and something about like I don't remember the name of that episode, but it ends with like at Road's End or something like that.
Yeah, to glory at the end.
I watched that whole episode thinking that it was the last one, and then was like, "Oh man, what a cliffhanger to end on!" And then it was like starting next episode.
Yep.
I was like, "What? I got another
boat.
one! This is amazing!" So that was like an excellent treat.
Which
to have another one.
Yeah,
just the fact that we had 9 episodes, just as the point there, I enjoyed that. Just that it wasn't stuck to the usual 8 episodes that everyone does,
or 6 for I think
it's usually 6 for Disney Plus, and
Yeah.
it always feels rushed. It always feels like it needs more room to breathe.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know. Secret Invasion felt a little overlong.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
Well, 5.5 episodes too long.
Yeah, and I guess Echo had what 4 episodes, and that was too many. So
I didn't even bother watching that one.
You weren't missing much.
Maybe it was 5, but
yeah, I was.
But then we get this last episode. I guess it's a very long-winded way of saying that. To Brett's point, I thought this last episode really made me feel some things for Agatha that maybe I hadn't felt so far in the series.
This last episode pissed me off, but go on, Cody.
Oh, that's all right. Just the idea of like her kind of trying to bargain for more time with her son from, well, who we know eventually here is Death, the Rio's character, Aubrey Plaza's character. And I actually really, really liked the like twist. I mean, there was a couple twists here, I guess, with the Witch's Row, but I loved that it was like just a con basically that they were playing on people to like get the power. I thought that was so fucking cool. Yeah, I don't know. I really like that, but I do think you get a little more emotional connection to some of the stuff going on with Agatha this last episode here. It's more honest, I guess, than she is through the rest of the show. Kind of like you were saying too, Brett. Like we kind of maybe only see her honest in that flashback, and then she's like this character past that, right? So, what were you gonna say, Joe? You got some beef on this one?
Well, it sounds like Justin was going to say something. I'll let him go first.
Okay, yeah, I just found it interesting that with this episode and seeing the history with Agatha and her son and the lengths she would go to try and have him in her life for longer, it set up kind of an interesting parallel with Wanda Maximoff. because she was also that was also kind of like the whole thing with her trying to keep
Good
her
point.
fantasy and illusion going, and I
Hmm.
thought that was kind of an interesting contrast because um in the end neither of them did good things. I mean, they did some terrible things to try and get what they wanted, and yet it's a matter of still trying to humanize them to some extent at the end. So I thought it was. I mean, it does in a way kind of set up the trope of the villain is like a shadow version of the hero that it has plagued Marvel from like the beginning.
Yeah.
But it did make Agatha feel like a more rounded character. But go ahead, Joe.
So the reason I have beef with this final episode is that I thought that what we get in this episode is way more compelling than the Billy plotline that made up the majority of the series. Like, we've got a witch who has this long-standing romance with literal death, and tragedy befalls them because death has to take her son. Like, it doesn't feel like she wants to, but it's her obligation because she is death. Like, they make this deal where she gives Agatha more time with her son, but Agatha doesn't know how much more time she's going to get. And it feels like Death is trying to do what she can to make her love happy, but I just I wanted this to either be like the entire series or its own like standalone movie or something. Like,
Mhm.
Hmm.
I just feel like the story that we get here is so much more interesting than everything that came before it. Which is, I mean, which is not to say that I didn't really enjoy the first 8 episodes, because I did. But then when this episode dropped, I was like, huh, this almost makes me like the rest of the series less because I'm so much more interested in this.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean it is an interesting style of how this is put together because they definitely could have, especially with the locket she had through the show, and like there would have been a lot of opportunities to further that story within the world that we were watching with them on the road and other things, and get more of Agatha's backstory. So I guess maybe to your point, Joe, like the fact that they hold off this story for like this. I don't even know. It is a weird way to end a show, like to go to a
Well, I mean,
flashback at the end and then just do that.
yeah. On the other
It's
hand,
like they're saving it for the surprise, but would it have been
yeah.
better to not do the surprise? Is kind of what you're getting at, I
Well,
think.
and I feel like maybe that's the problem is I do kind of like the fact that they hinted at this stuff throughout the series, and then we finally see like what it was in this last episode. But I think, especially since the series is called Agatha All Along, for the first 8 episodes, it really feels like it is about Billy and like him like figuring out who he is and him kind of coming into his own power and whatnot. And then we finally do get this Agatha story. I'm like, man, like that I just want more of it. Like, I just want more of that. Like, we don't really actually see how her relationship with death starts, or like what that looks like before it's already ending or over. And I just found the whole thing really compelling.
Yeah, I mean, you make a good point there. It is like more Billy's story than it is her story. Like she's the vehicle through which we're like getting his story.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it's an interesting point. Yeah. Um, okay, let's see what else we got in here. I guess I just wanted to ask, we didn't really know exactly what this. Well, maybe let's save that point. Let's save the point. Let's go to how about other negatives we had for the show? Any other things that didn't work for you as we went through these episodes and with these characters and spent time? Is there anything else that bothered you or just didn't work in general that we haven't mentioned to this point?
Building a little off of what Joe said, I'm not entirely thrilled that Wanda's imaginary children are still playing a focal point in like the development of the MCU because it seems like that whole thing has gotten developed more to where they actually do sort of exist on their own, at least in concept. But I don't know, it legitimizes all the horrible things that Wanda did to some extent where I don't know how I feel about that
But now we
because
can get the Young Avengers.
yeah.
Yeah.
True.
I mean, which I would be okay with, but it's just I don't know. I was ready to leave that plot element behind, but then again, on the flip side, at least they are trying to have some consistency in what stories are coming out now, so I can't fault them too much for that.
Hmm.
Whereas a lot of stuff that's come out besides this has felt very, very unconnected to anything.
Yeah, I thought it was nice that it turned out to be connected. I kind of expected a disconnected show, even though it was a follow-up to WandaVision. It's kind of so. How do I put this? It's interesting to me that we knew going into it that this was a sequel to WandaVision, a show in which it turns out Agatha was like the evil mastermind all along. And the two twists in this are that one, it's a sequel to WandaVision, meaning like Billy shows up, and two, it's Agatha all along who was, being evil and trying to kill people. And it sounds like a criticism to say that like those turn out to be the twists, but I don't know, I was very happy with both of those. I don't know. I don't really have much negative to say about this show.
Yeah, I was
I
thinking
liked a
too.
lot of it.
I don't have anything that's like glaringly negative. Um, there were things that I thought worked really well. There were other things that I thought were just fine. I honestly can't think of anything that I would felt was just like blatantly negative. You guys kind of touched a little bit on earlier just on character development, and like some of these characters we don't get a great feel for. And I would have liked to have known those characters better. That's probably the biggest negative I could come up with, right off the top of my head.
Honestly, my only other negative, which I already kind of touched on, is the Salem 7. Like,
Oh yeah.
I don't know why they even had to be in the show because it really felt like they didn't add anything at all. Like, they're presented as this major threat, and then there's really not even like a final confrontation. I mean, Lilia kind of has a standoff with them, but then she fairly easily just takes them all out, like while sacrificing herself. Like after that episode aired, I heard people say that because it kind of like cuts to like a dark screen and you hear the sound of, bodies hitting the swords.
Hmm.
And apparently people counted that there were only like five body sword sounds. So they're like, oh, that means like two of them could fly because they had the form of like winged animals. So those two are like probably the most powerful, and they're gonna like confront Agatha, and but like no, like they're just all dead there and like never spoken of again.
Yeah,
Let
I
the
almost
bodies
feel
hit the swords. Let the bodies hit the swords.
yeah, I almost feel like they were introduced just as a plot device to get everyone to go onto the road, like when the door first opened.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then it's like, okay, what do we do with them from this point on? Shrug, you know.
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't know if there's if this is anything in the that should be counted as like a like comic lore canon or anything, but like are we supposed to know that the characters are like super powerful? Are they just supposed to be somewhat dangerous? Are they supposed to like what are they supposed to be? That is an issue. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I will
Did you
say,
have any negatives, Cody?
well, I was just thinking while you guys were talking, like the Salem 7. I wondered if any of them got away as well, Joe. But that's good to know. Two flew out, maybe question mark. But they were also like except for that one episode, they were like the horror element in the show too. Like they were like presented as really creepy in that intro episode, and they were like attacking the house. Not the smartest per se, it seemed like, but when they were like crawling down the stairs and shit, like that was pretty creepy stuff. And that element seemed to mostly go away as they got on the road and kept going. It was like focused on other things other than like the horror that they started with. So I guess there's that. Um, I don't know if it's a negative, but I guess it's a little fuzzy for me on this. And I guess if I'm calling myself a big MCU fan and I'm fuzzy on it, maybe other people did have issue with this that watched the show, but I don't fully know that I understand how this magic works. Um, like despite how they explained in pretty detailed attempt, I feel like, here, but I still don't really understand how like Wanda creates these people and then like their spirits are out there, but then they can inhabit like somebody as they're about to die's body, but then also she made the vision which flew off into whereversville um back then, or even like the concept of like spoiler, but when they figure out like what the road really is and like how does that work? Is it like a projection? Is he actually transporting them to another place? And it's so like how did Death arrive? Is that just because she's omnipotent? But then how did the Salem Seven show up into that vision? Like there's just questions I have with like the magic here, but I don't know if it truly matters all that much. Just
I mean, as far as the road, I kind of just took it as the road is to Billy as like all the shit in WandaVision was to Wanda. Like he just
Yeah.
kind of manifested all that.
yeah, but I guess I'm saying like what's different about it to me is like when she transformed Westview, like those people
Yeah.
were still stuck in Westview and like people couldn't get in and out of
Well,
Westview, but like
so
these evil witches took forever to catch up to them, even though they were just in the basement that they were in the whole time. You know what I mean?
apparently I apparently there's like a throwaway line earlier in the season about there being like tunnels under Westview. And then there is a part in one episode where they like come to like a fork in the road and someone says that like that's the way off the road and it's like looks like a subway tunnel or something. So
Mm,
I think they are actually in a series of tunnels that runs under Westview and not just
interesting.
actually in
Hmm.
Agatha's basement the whole time.
Okay.
But I mean, as to your other questions, I don't really know if I have answers to those.
I guess that would explain some of it. Maybe not the mansions they go to, unless those were just random houses they went up in. I don't know, but
And it could, I mean, it could very well be just with Billy's power. It could be like some alternate plane of existence, even like we have no way of knowing like where it is. But
yeah,
yeah, the fact that there was that one like subway tunnel scene,
I forgot about that. Yeah.
it does seem like that could be a possibility that they are actually in the physical world yet.
On the subject of questions that really deserve answers, going back to the Salem Seven for a bit. So, according to they had to have done something like their own take on them because according to the actual Marvel lore, I looked it up
Hmm.
while you guys were talking. Um, all seven are the children of Nicholas Scratch and the grandchildren of Agatha Harkness. So
What?
that is apparently the actual like origins of them in the comics.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
they
the
took
show
a
has to have done
creative liberty there then.
Well, in the
yeah.
show, I believe they say that they are the daughters of the witches from Agatha's original coven that she killed when they were trying to kill her.
Oh, okay. It had been a while since I watched the earlier episodes, but um,
Okay. Man, that
And is
little.
that pre-Nicholas that we think that happened?
uh,
I'm trying to remember. I listened to a podcast where they answered that question, but I don't remember.
Yeah, as
Okay.
far as the show, it's unclear as to whether she started uh sacrificing her covens before or after she had Billy, or well,
Nicholas.
Nicholas. So yeah, that we don't know. It could have been someone before or after. We don't know.
Okay.
Hmm.
Interesting. Oh, I just remembered one negative that I didn't like about the very first episode, and I wasn't on the pod with you guys to talk about it. I really don't like when a show spins off of another show, or like so when Loki seasons 1 and 2, I think they're amazing, but the fact that like Chris Hemsworth as Thor is never in any of them just really bothers me because those two characters are so uh, incorporated with each other's stories. And so, but, and you know that it's like just because of behind the scenes reasons. I thought in the first episode of this too, when they have like Wanda as like the dead body found in the forest or something, and they'll show like a shock of red hair, they'll
Yeah.
show like her bare feet and stuff, and you're like, okay, this is supposed to be Elizabeth Olsen, but it's clearly not And it always bugs me that they couldn't get the actor for like one episode or something, just to help uh transition. It feels very blatantly Hollywood and kind of breaks the immersion for me when that happens.
Dave's mad he didn't get it, that Elizabeth Olsen foot shot.
I knew it wasn't really her. That's really funny.
He could tell. Yeah, that's a good point. I remember watching like Agents of Shield back in the day, and there was like the episode or two where they had Lady Sif, and I was like, "There's
Yes.
somebody from the movies," although she disappeared from the movies. But that's not the point.
This is the person from the movies that we can afford.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
You think that you think it's just a purely monetary reason why they did that, or is there something else behind the scenes?
Could be monetary, could be scheduling.
I haven't looked into it, but I have heard kind of in the ether that Elizabeth Olsen has said that she's done with the MCU. So
Mm.
I don't know if she has some kind of beef or if she just like isn't interested in being part of it anymore.
Mhm.
I'm sure if they back a big enough dump truck full of money up to her house, she'll change her mind on that. But
I don't know. Feet shots aren't cheap.
They could bring her back as an entirely different character.
Oh,
Dr.
Wait.
Doom's wife.
That doesn't work.
it's probably true. It's good. But let's see what else we got here. Oh, well, Dave, you mentioned it did tie in a little bit to the MCU when all was said and done, compared to the beginning, maybe where we thought it might go. But
Yeah.
I mean, how do you think this show is going to impact anything in the Marvel Universe going forward? Like, Billy probably it's eventually will get in this Young Avengers movie. Do we think he's going to find his brother prior to that when it happens? Is he going to be in there as well? Is Agatha actually going to be like a character that comes back? Like it's an interesting place they left her in because we haven't really seen that happen yet in the MCU, have we?
what, see someone die and come back as a ghost?
Yeah.
No, never.
No, I don't think we have seen that.
No.
I am curious because of the way the series actually ends, where it seems like it's setting up a continuation where Ghost Agatha and Billy are going to go try to find Tommy, but I don't know what form that continuation takes because they presented this as a limited series, meaning just one season. I can't imagine that's going to carry over into a movie, but maybe it'll be like a B story in a movie. I don't know.
That
I
sounded
saw
like
I saw some article saying that like WandaVision, Agatha All Along, and the Vision show they're working on are gonna kind of form a
Oh,
trilogy
I keep forgetting
story
about the
together.
Vision show. That makes sense.
Mm.
So
well,
hopefully we'll see them then. Hopefully that's
they
not
haven't
like
mentioned the Vision in
3-4
forever,
years
so
from now.
Yeah.
yeah, it'll be interesting. So I wonder if that'll be like purely him Vision, or if it's gonna be like half this quest, like, or how that ties in even with. I mean, they could easily tie him in with the two kids, I guess, if they were all created by Wanda. They could say there's something there that like ties them.
Yeah.
But Joe, when you were saying your comment there, I started chuckling because it sounded like a warped version of lyrics from Bon Jovi. Were like, Ghost Agatha and Billy go to look for Tommy down the dock. I was like,
Union's been on strike.
But he's underwater apparently, so there's that.
Witches Guild's on strike. Oh my god. Let's see what else we got here. Did you guys get sick of the Witches Road song or not? When all was said and I still loved it by the end
I
myself.
kind of liked it. Yeah, it's catchy.
I kind of got sick of it, but when we got the revelation in the final episode about how it came into being and sort of permeated witch culture as part of this grift that Agatha was pulling, I ended up kind of coming back around to it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
I really like too how was it? Oh, they kind of breeze past this, but it's revealed, I believe, unless I misunderstood, that Alice's mom like purposefully like recorded that as like a hit song to act as a protection spell for her daughter, and like as long as that song was playing somewhere, the protection lasted. And I thought that was such a cool concept.
Hmm.
Um, for like a spell and making a spell last for, even after your own death. I wish they had kind of touched on that a little more or done a little more with that idea because I just thought that was very cool.
Yeah, they didn't really linger on that long. I actually had forgotten that until you brought it up. But yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, it's a cool idea. Paramount.
I think the only thing I didn't like about the song continuously being played is that I didn't enjoy every genre version of it as much.
Yeah.
So
It's yeah, I do agree with Joe that the last episode really kind of elevated it and salvaged it for me. But there were times going through it where it felt like I was stuck in like a Target around Christmas time, and it's like you hear the same song over and over and over again. So
All I want for Christmas is the Witch's Road.
They have music from Agatha All Along. Side one has the Ballad of the Witch's Road, True Crime version, Sacred Chant version, Lorna Woo's version, cover version, Nikki's version, Agatha
Jesus.
Through Time version,
Oh my
pop version,
God,
and
mercy.
score version.
wow.
Which is probably even more than I realized. That's pretty awesome, though.
That's wild.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. All right, what else we got here? Yeah, I mean, the last question I had for everybody basically was just whether the show met your expectation, but that's kind of getting into our final thoughts, I guess, on this. So, is there anything else, period, that we haven't chatted about that anybody wants to bring up here? So I see we have.
I mean, I feel like we've kind of touched on this, but I do like how complex Agatha ends up being as a character, and it feels like she's not really necessarily an evil person, but it's like she just can't help herself. And I feel like we really see that in the scene after her son has died, and that other witch kind of just happens upon her and is like, "Oh, I've heard that song, can bring you power." And like Agatha's like grieving her son at that moment, but like as soon as she senses an opportunity, she just like flips on a dime and is like, "Oh yes, come here, let me show you." Like it's like she's capable, like she is capable of being a deeply caring person, but it's like she can't help, like she can't fight the part of herself that just like wants to keep getting all this power.
Yeah, I think we we obviously have mentioned it more than once previously, just on the fact that when the show was announced, like everyone said, "Why are we having this show?"
Yeah,
And
good point.
now it has turned into where the character is one of the more interesting and more
Yeah.
well-developed characters in the entire MCU.
Yeah.
Like
Let's
she's
just think-
definitely not a hero. Like that's what I think is interesting. But like I wouldn't say she's really necessarily a villain, or at least I guess she is a villain, but at least a much more sympathetic one after this series.
Mm.
It's the ghost with the bear butt.
Oh, did you guys see there's like a TikTok where there a couple of guys are watching the scene where they're doing the Ouija board and they spell MRSHART. And the
Yes.
guy's like, Mr. Shart?
I mean, that was my reaction. Alexis and I were watching it. I was like, Mr. Sharp? What?
It's incredible.
If I die and become a ghost, that's what I'm going to be doing with my time, just like messing with people with Ouija boards.
Yeah, it raises a good question. If you're a ghost, can you just go by whatever identity you want to then when people are playing Ouija?
I mean, isn't that what happened in The Exorcist?
It's been a long time since I've actually watched The Exorcist, but I'm pretty sure they didn't commune with Jizzmaster 3000, so. J-I-Z? I was just gonna mention too, I guess one last thing here for me was we had kind of mentioned in that premiere one too that there were all of the Wizard of Oz like references and imagery, and then like as that continued on, like there was a lot of it as it went through, and then like with a twist at the end of like Billy basically creating it based on the stuff around him. Like I kind of feel like I got by that, and I enjoyed that. I feel like I got by that. So like the hints were there, they were showing them to us. Like this guy's making this thing of what he knows around him, and I didn't pick up on it enough, I guess.
I got strong Labyrinth vibes from that.
Yeah,
Where
Yes.
like all the stuff in
Mm.
Sarah's room at the beginning is like later seen
yeah.
in the labyrinth.
Was it Aubrey Plaza's Magic Pants Dance?
Oh,
Yeah, that's all I got. Anything else before we rate this bad boy?
Nothing for me.
We cruised through a
Um,
whole season here.
I mean, I would just say if death looked like that for real, I
yeah.
might be convinced to shorten my lifespan
The
by a little
skull
bit.
version, though, I don't know, man. That was fucked up at the end there.
That was cool. That was pretty cool.
Yeah,
Uh,
still would. You're right.
did you guys get like when you were watching the backstory scenes with Lilia when she was at the table? Like, were you guys getting like a little Game of Thrones vibe there, sitting at that table? It just reminded me of like the scenes in the gardens and stuff with the old lady and Marjorie.
See it.
Yeah, I could see it.
It's like,
Yeah,
this
I
is
think
kind
the
of cool.
costumes were very similar.
Yeah,
Probably
Yeah.
was a big part of that.
Game of Thrones probably copied this. I mean, that was a way long time ago. So there we go. All right, well, I guess we'll put some scores on this bad boy. Does anybody want to go first? Otherwise, I can. And
I'd
all
say go
right,
for it.
sounds good. I'll do it then. Yeah, I enjoyed this quite a bit. It sounds like most people didn't have a lot of big negatives on this, and it was really enjoyable. I look forward to watching this one like every week. I think I had seen, I may even have posted it in the chat someplace that and I apologize, I don't know who the director of this series was. I have to pull this up here, but who's this directed here?
So they had
Showrunner.
3 different directors.
Okay, maybe I'm thinking of the showrunner here. Um, I thought it was. I don't know, but anyway, I saw somewhere that the people behind this show, there was a big push to like get them to actually take over the MCU television unit, and be in charge of like
Oh,
all of the
yeah.
shows. Which is an interesting idea because this was really competent. This was really well done. Obviously, every genre of the Marvel stuff is a little bit different. If you do comedy versus presumably some kind of lawyer show when Daredevil comes out versus horror versus sci-fi versus whatever. So I don't know how one person could be good at all of those, but I guess they kind of make it work for the movies for the most part. So it's an interesting idea, though. I do think it's pretty cool. We got to see Mr. Boner back in this series as well for a
Oh, I
smidge,
forgot
so
about that.
that was kind of fun as well. Evan Peters is just like, I'm down to play the boner whenever you need me to. Like, just he's not Chris Hemsworth. He's the anti-Chris Hemsworth or Elizabeth Olsen. But yeah,
Looks like Jacqueline Schaefer or Jack Schaefer was
okay.
the
Yes.
There we
showrunner.
go. Showrunner. Oh, I see it right there
Who,
now.
weirdly, I don't think is involved with the Vision series. I think she was, but now she's not anymore.
Oh, weird. Okay. Huh.
Hmm.
Um. Yeah, I enjoyed this start to finish. I liked the twist. I liked the characters for the most part. My wife and daughter absolutely loved that the show was mostly about Joe Locke's character because they love him from Heartstoppers, I think it's called. I think they've watched it like once together and 3 times independently, both. So they absolutely
Cool.
love that show. But shout out to that show if you're down to watch that. I think it's on Netflix, but fantastic. I liked it all the way start to finish. I had a lot of hope for this one when it began, and I'll just kind of keep it short here, but I think it mostly delivered. I liked the escape room style episodes in the middle. I liked the twist at the end. I liked a lot of the characters. Not so sure about some of the magic elements, as I mentioned, like just how everything works per se, but it was pretty cool. Awesome ending. I'm going to finish this one with 8.5 as I just typed it right then. So there we go.
I'll go next. I really enjoyed this. As we said, there were a couple of things that could have been better, but really no strong negatives. Great performances all around. Great writing. Lots of cool twists. I liked it a lot. And, as I was thinking about it just now, I realized, one other thing I enjoyed that we didn't bring up is depiction of queer relationships. There were at least two that were
Yeah.
not skirted around, or it wasn't like how Star Wars has like one lesbian kiss for like half a second in the background, and they say, yeah, representation. Um, I really loved that about it.
Yay.
I was gonna give this like an 8.9, but now I'm thinking I'm gonna bump it up a little. I'm gonna say like a 9.1 for me, which is quite high on my scale, and I can't wait to watch it again.
I thought it could
Uh,
have been gayer.
Watch
Everything could always be
Heartstopper, then.
gayer.
No,
That's what that show is. The whole
I'm
thing.
kind of serious though. Like, especially, I mean, I thought the relationship with Billy and his boyfriend I thought was portrayed well, but I
Yeah.
felt like they kind of shied away. There's like a couple kisses between Agatha and Death, but like I really kind of wanted more of that relationship and what that was
I'm sure
about.
you did.
I mean, I don't mean it in any sort of like salacious way. Like I'm serious. I feel like, and I mean, maybe it's because well,
You
I
wanted
don't
to
know
you
if
wanted to
either of
see
those actresses are like queer. But I don't know. I felt like they shied away from really exploring that relationship, um, in any sort of depth.
Joe, what part of Aubrey Plaza do you think is nicknamed the Witch's Road?
Anyway,
Jesus Christ.
I guess since I'm talking, I will wrap my bit up here real quick. I I enjoyed the show a lot overall. The last episode did really kind of throw me for a loop because I was like, I really loved the first 8 episodes, and then that came along, and I was like, damn it. But overall, it's definitely one of the better MCU series. As Dave said, great performances all around. And it was just kind of a fun, witchy time during spooky season.
Yeah.
Not quite going to be as high on it as the first two gents, but I am going to give it an 8 out of 10.
I'm changing my score to 8.7 because we're not done with the scores yet. Going up a little bit.
Okay.
Okay, I'll go next. I gotta say this one really surprised me. Like when it was announced, like when it, all the way up to when I first started watching it, I was one of the people who was in the camp of why does this exist? Who was asking for this? Why is this a thing? And I expected, in that mindset to just kind of be like only half paying attention to it as I went, like, reading, Facebook or whatever in the background and just kind of like listening in as stuff happened. But the more the show kept going, the more I found that I actually was invested and like unironically just interested in seeing where it went, and just starting to care about these characters that I would not have expected to have any sort of attachment to heading into this. Um, and that's a pretty profound achievement considering some of the other, Marvel properties that have come out in the past couple of years that I have been interested in and that fell very, very flat. So yeah, this one was really a sleeper hit for me. Um, and yeah, I had a few tiny nitpicks with it, but nothing major. I have to give it an 8 out of 10. This was a very pleasant surprise.
Yeah, I mean, my opinion's not too far off of any of your guys. Things I would add are like just that this was a show that we were happy to, like, excited to watch like every episode. Like there was at least a couple episodes where we like had Disney Plus pulled up like before it was released, like a few minutes before, and like we were like right as soon as it dropped, like boom, we're in it and watching. Both of us my wife and I were really enjoyed it quite a bit. I think that the timing also, like Joe said, like dropping at Halloween was just perfect for it. It just, you're already in the mood for it. But I don't know that like that wasn't why I liked it. It just was another extra bit of, setting the tone for it. And like the characters were fun. They were enjoyable. We, like that episode 7 with Lilia was a very well written episode. Like we immediately had this done, we both like turned to each other and said that was an awesome episode. We really enjoyed it. It just was, and it showed like if you go back and look through, like we started watching a few of the episodes like over again, like the thought planning of the episodes to like drop these hints in and then like reveal like we already showed you this before. Like you can go back and watch it. It was there.
Yeah.
Was really well done. That episode just in particular like was very like tense and moving. A story of a character who essentially like knows it's their end and like still goes through with it because it's the greater good or whatever. Always is a great, if written well, is always great. And then like that last episode was really, like especially as a parent, like really pulled at the heartstrings a lot. It was, very moving, and really kind of filled out like some of the remaining pieces of the character that really, made the show as a whole great. So, as I said, we started watching a few episodes over again. We probably will watch the whole series again, fairly soon. Overall, we really enjoyed it. I'm gonna give this 8.5.
Okay. Strong scores across the board for this one. We got here 8.46 aggregate. Wow. That's or average, I should say, I guess. That's a pretty high score for a series that we were all like, what the fuck is the purpose of having the series? I mean, if anything, kind of gives me a little more hope, I feel like, for some of the projects they have coming up. Like maybe they are actually trying to make sure these are as great as they can be. And that puts our score just above the Glenn Powell movie Hitman. So
What?
that was why I changed my score at the last second there. I'm,
What?
I'm joking. I'm joking. In lieu of our traditional little outro game that we'll play here tonight, instead of that, we will just leave you all by kind of giving you a brief culture shock here for two of our hosts.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but dear listener, I just need to clarify that
Yes.
the classic Glenn Powell film Hitman still has a 95% fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes, which is 12% higher than Agatha All Along.
No, you misunderstand me. I meant our podcast review score.
I know what you're saying, but I just need the listener at home to know that professional critics are still sane, and the Glenn Powell classic Hitman is 12% higher than this series on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh, okay. I stand corrected then, I guess. Okay. But anyway, here is just a quick run through of what we have coming up for the MCU instead of our traditional game here. We still have one more project coming out this year, which is animated. If you're into the animation stuff, I'm kind of hit or miss with that myself. But What If Season 3 comes out on December 22nd. So that's the last thing we have here. This year, January, we have another animated series, Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. I don't know if that actually ties into the MCU or not, I'll be honest. Valentine's Day is our next movie, Captain America Brave New World, which they haven't had to do any reshoots for, so high hopes on that one. Going to be great. And then we have Daredevil, Born Again, coming out in March on the TV side of all of this. I'm super looking forward to that one. Thunderbolts is our next movie after that in May. That could be a really fun one, depending.
I'm
Hopefully
excited for that
it's
one.
not bad, but hopefully it's good. June next year, we have the Ironheart TV show coming out. Another character I don't know if we needed a show for or not, but there it is. Then we have in July the Fantastic Four movie coming out. Wow, it's hard to believe that's already here. I mean, it's not, it's half a year away, but it seemed like that idea was like a long
Right
ways
around
in
the
the
corner.
future.
Yeah.
So Fantastic Four First Steps, that one is called. And then right after that, we have in August an animated series, The Eyes of Wakanda, which says is a female Black Panther protecting her nation's vibranium resources during the age of piracy. That's a real sentence I just read, people. I don't know how that's going to work, but we'll see. Then we get a month off, but then we're back in October. Halloween next year, we get the Marvel Zombies animated series, which I think I read is rated R, so I'm intrigued to see that one as well. And then we finish next year off with the Wonder Man series, which is another TV show. So
Is
that's what
that
we got
live
coming
action
up.
or animated?
That is live action.
Weird. I've never even heard of
Have they
that.
cast Wonder Man yet?
It
I
says
think they
Yaha
have.
Abdul Mateen II from movies such as Aquaman, and also starring Ben Kingsley as Trevor Slattery back
Oh
again.
God.
Oh, god damn it. No, I'm going to have to watch that.
Oh.
That's right. Also, additional cast include Mindhunters Lauren Glazier, Ed Harris, and Josh Gad. Whoa.
Gross. Oh, no.
Okay. Sounds pretty bad.
That's
Yeah.
why Josh Gad
Why
ever in
not?
anything.
Oh my God.
Anyway, and then after that, we got all the Avengers crap that we're still working on, and we got the Vision Quest thing in there at some point as well. So, eventually we'll get a Shang-Chi too, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Ah.
I just want Eternals 3. Can we just get to that? Oh well.
I
Okay.
have to say, I genuinely don't think I care about any of the things that you just discussed.
There's some things there that
That-
I am not excited about,
I will say
but
I
then
am
this show, right? So I don't know.
yeah.
The only one of those titles I am kind of curious about is Thunderbolts, just
Yeah.
because I'm hoping it will be fun. Like it feels like it could be kind of a fun wild ride. I mean, Florence Pugh as Yelena is great, and David Harbour as Red Guardian is also great. So I'm hoping that'll be like just kind of a fun movie, but other than that, meh.
Well, you
Yeah,
can see it.
until what we just talked about today, I would have agreed with Joe, but I didn't think I was going to give a rat's ass about Agatha All Along. And it ended up,
There it is.
I think, being one of the better things Marvel has put out in quite some time. So, given that, I'm willing to give pretty much all of the rest of these at least a fighting chance, because who knows, we might lightning might strike twice. And
Yeah.
this is probably the most optimistic I've been about the MCU in a while.
I mean, let me clarify. I'm hoping I'll be surprised. Like I want all of this stuff to be great. Like I hope that the MCU can win me back over, more consistently than just catching me off guard here and there. Make Marvel great again. I'm just saying.
Don't you mean make Avengers great again?
You did it. Wait, what Avengers? Is there currently an Avengers team?
Yeah, somewhere.
There's a Captain America.
It's wild how long they've let that question go unanswered.
Yeah.
For like their flagship team, the most famous one, the one that brings in the most money, and they're just really keeping it vague.
Who are Avengers? What are Avengers? Why are Avengers? Where are Avengers?
How are Avengers?
There we go. I'm excited for quite a few of those, Daredevil especially, but I think the movies will be fun. Fantastic Four, I'm intrigued to see. Thunderbolts will be fun.
When is Fantastic Four again?
Summer, sometime this summer. I already closed it, but it was like June or July, I think.
All right. I am kind of excited about that one, mostly because of the cast and the period setting.
Mm. It's got America's Favorite Dad in it, so you got to watch it. Pedro Pascal. All right.
No, he's America's favorite daddy. I think you have that wrong.
Okay.
Is he a zaddy? I think probably.
He's probably a zaddy. I think so.
He's got that energy.
Yeah.
Woo! Grogu, let's get going here, everybody. Look at the time. All right. This has been Friends Occasionally Not Disagreeing. We got a full house tonight. We'll see you all later.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.
Hey, fondlings and fondlers. This has been another episode of Friends Occasionally Not Disagreeing, your favorite podcast. It's most people's favorite podcasts, or at least so my mom tells me. You can check us out all over the place online at our homepage, www.fondpod.com or fondpodcast.com. You can also check us out across your social media sites, including Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X, YouTube, and anywhere else you get your streamed podcast. Thanks so much.